So Nishant is saying this is a good session for fresher, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of learning coming at the end of this webinar, not just for freshers, but for professionals too. And I can second that statement. I believe Idan can second that statement for me as well. So we'll be actually deep diving on, we'll be showcasing a lot of cool capabilities and how you can actually streamline from a business point of view to make sure that your developers and QAs, they're both going hand in hand and your release cycle is moving at the pace that you want it to. So lots of learning, definitely. And I think we are about, we have hit the clock now, and we have a good number of attendees so far. So I'll just start the session, but before we do that, I'll just like to make it very clear. So I have, the code set up in a different system. I actually got a new system. So when I'll be demoing, I'll be looking at the other screen, and it's going to be a bit sideways, but please don't mind me. And having said that, let's get started. So hey, everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. Welcome to another LambdaTest webinar. Today, we are going to deep dive on how you could increase your product release velocity by ensuring your debugging and testing go hand in hand. Before we get started, let's quickly take cover of a few housekeeping items. This session is going to be an hour and a half long, so in case you need to drop off, this session is recorded and will be shared with you over your registered email address. And you can also find the full recording of this session over our YouTube channel. You can also find the recording of previous webinars over our YouTube channel. So in case you haven't already subscribed, make sure you go search LambdaTest and hit the subscribe button there. We would love to hear from you. This is an open-ended session, so if there is anything that you feel while we are demoing or we are discussing, make sure you drop those questions in the chat, and we'll be addressing as many of them as we can at the end of this webinar. We'll have a dedicated Q&A round by that time, so we'll pick as many questions as we can. Having said that, let's get to it and see today's presenters. So myself, I'm Harshit Paul. I manage product and growth at LambdaTest, and I'll be the host for this webinar. Joining us today is Idan Shatz, who is a developer advocate at Ozcode. Hi, Idan. Thanks for taking your time out. I know you have a busy schedule, and it's great to have you here. Please feel free to introduce yourself to our viewers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Harshit, and thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to show you guys what LambdaTest and Ozcode can do together.
Awesome. So having said that, I hope my screen is visible clearly to everyone.
I can see it clearly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so today's agenda, right? So modern release cycles demand for pace, and we do everything we can to accelerate our go-to-market delivery. However, there are a few roadblocks that we often meet when we are trying to drive in the fast lane, right? And it is what we'll be discussing firsthand. Next up, we'll touch base on the two platforms. We'll talk briefly about what LambdaTest and Ozcode is capable of and how they can help you, pace your release velocity. After which we'll deep dive straight into the action. We'll go and see the, 3 different demo, which will be covering end-to-end testing scenarios. So you could actually see and, not just testing, but production debugging scenarios as well. So we can see how you can manage your entire release, how you can orchestrate your entire release right from QA to the developers or vice versa. We will then note down some of the best practices that you can keep in mind in order to move as fast as you want your release cycle to be. And at the end, as I said, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll try to address as many queries and questions that you have for us. And having said that, let's talk about the roadblocks to release velocity, right? So starting off with in-house infrastructure, which is, as we know, it's too time consuming and expensive because when you're maintaining an in-house infrastructure, there are so many devices that are being launched every month by different brands, and you have to make sure that your customers could come up from any device or operating system or a browser, and you have to make sure that you have all of these set up with you in order to give you the exact test coverage that you want for your automation suites or normal manual testing scripts as well, for example. Now, making sure that every device is added to your infrastructure is definitely going to be a challenge. And then also, if you say, for example, have scores of devices which you have with you, maintaining the existing set of devices is also going to create an overhead over your DevOps team, because that will be taking away their bandwidth because they'll have to make sure that the machines are the sanity is performed, operating system dependencies are not crashing your test results, and system under test is always clean to go ahead with your test scripts. And there's going to be a lot to that, right? And I am sure we all have those we've all come across those scenarios where in-house infrastructure dependency has actually delayed the way and the speed at which we want to ship our product.
Exactly. And to add to that, if your QA people are able to find some issue on a specific device, it's very important now to really to communicate that clearly to the development. And sometimes it's not so easy to do, and sometimes there is mistakes. And we found out that there is the communication gap sometimes between the QA department and the developers. And sometimes even if the QA managed to find an issue, there is a ping pong that go back and forth like, oh, great, you reproduce this, but on which device? Well, I tried that on mine, but mine was of as a new version of Chrome, so it didn't happen. So now you need to go back, get more details, reproduce it again. So to have good tools to really help QA really deliver the information that devs need in order to resolve the issue.
Agreed, and I'm sure we have all seen across that meme that which raged on social media, where developer is trying to say, "Hey, it works on my system," and QA is like, "No, it's not working on mine. It doesn't matter if it's working on yours." So, which brings us to the next challenge. Sometimes it also happens because the environments that you have for your developers, testers, and the production environment, which is there for your customers, they don't have the identical or the mirror image that they should have. So you sometimes it often so happens that your website is working absolutely well on stage environment, the changes that you've done, they have passed with flying colors, but the moment you push that code to the production, something goes haywire, right? And you're not sure what went wrong there. And it also happens in the vice versa manner. You have something in the production side which is working you have something on the production side which suddenly breaks, and then you're not able to reproduce that on your staging environments. And there could be many reasons behind that. Your stage may not have the live traffic that your production is facing. You might not have the right testing and configurations configured on both the devices. As Idan pointed out, the developer has the latest uh, browser and operating system, and the QA doesn't, or vice versa. So you have to make sure that your production environment and your staging environment are mirroring each other and complementing in a way that everything that passes here should passes over there as well. Because if something breaks while you're shipping from stage to prod, and or vice versa, it just takes a lot of time in order to find the RCA and revert the and apply the hotfix, do regression testing. So that adds a lot of overhead and overload to and delay the release velocity for sure.
Exactly, exactly. And when you really talk about production and staging, sometimes bugs are only created when all the stars are aligned correctly. You need really to have a lot of pressure on your system to get into these edge cases to actually reproduce it. And I know a lot of companies have those list of let's call them urban legends of all kind of bugs that happened once, and it was very hard to really reproduce them. Or even they were able to several users, it's very hard to find the exact condition to reproduce them again in the lab. And that is really major limitation for your velocity. How quickly can you reproduce the issues that happens in QA or to your user in production?
Agreed. And then there's automation. So sometimes you're not leveraging your automation testing suite is not as big as you would want it to be. And it affects and actually slows down your entire, release cycle. Because every time you push something, there is a round of regression testing, for example, which is a standard process, right? And we all know the pain point which comes with regression, right? Performing the same test over and over takes more time, but also brings down the overall efficiency of a tester, right? So without a doubt, if you have a big enough automation testing suite which covers as much as it can on the regression side, you not only relieve your testers from repeating the monotonous test cases, but that also gives them the right bandwidth to think about the critical and find those critical edge cases which are very important towards the business, and they're able to address those scenarios over there. So automation testing as much as you can is definitely going to help you move faster in the right direction.
Exactly, exactly. It's really about how every team have a finite resources, both in testers and both in developers. And that is so crucial to focus your QA people on really focusing what is really important to your business and try to leverage automation to cover all the other edge cases. And it's also true for your development team. It's really important to not only to track all the bugs that you have in the system, but to really understand your bugs, because you can have a null exception that doesn't affect your business at all, that happen 20,000 times a second, and you can have an exception that happen twice a day, but that is in the checkout. So you really need to understand and have good metrics to really then point your developers of fixing the bugs that actually matters.
Agreed. So having said that, as I was saying, automation testing, right? But there is a drag when we rely on automation testing too far, and that is flaky tests, right? Dealing with flaky tests is just a drag, right? Something is working today, it won't work tomorrow, false positive, negatives, lots of things that are already on our plate, and then the last thing that we want is an inconsistent performing test suite, which just adds up to the just sucks up the entire bandwidth and add up to the problems that we are already having on the plate. Now, there could be reasons, different reasons, but primarily, there are four that I would say. Your test, there could be something wrong with your test, which is causing them to, behave in an absurd manner, leading to flakiness. There could be some running framework dependency, whichever test framework that you're using. Sometimes the test may not be compatible, your script may not be compatible with adherence to the framework that you're trying to use. Sometimes it's just the system under test in itself, the libraries and the frameworks that you, when you combine everything together in a system under test, it works at one point, it doesn't work tomorrow or at a later point. And sometimes it's just the operating system dependency. So something is working absolutely fine in an operating system at one point, later some update comes in or something else, and then it ends up breaking. So it depends a lot upon how your environment is set up, or how your tests are set up, how the framework you have selected, which framework you have selected, how well it is compatible with the entire testing requirements. But making sure that you have the everything set up in the right place in order to avoid test flakiness is definitely can help you save a lot of your time, because flaky tests are the last thing that you want in an automation suite.
Exactly. And you really go back to the idea of what really costs you time, right? Because the longer it take you as and your team to resolve issues, then the bigger the impact of that specific bug on your business. And that also that is especially true when you can only reproduce the issues in production. And if you're dealing with sensitive information, that even become another multiplier of time it take you to debug it, because now you actually need to run um, through some regulatory rules and restrictions, because we are really want to ensure that we are protecting our clients' sensitive information. And sometimes just in order to see logs coming from production, you need to have this 2 weeks process or 1 month process of authorization. And while you're doing that, your bug is still affecting your users. So everything that would allow you to automate or improve the way you can actually resolve issues in production would actually be helpful for that. And I think with that, let's move to the next slide.
Awesome. So now that we are aware of the roadblocks, what's holding you from actually moving faster, we're going to get to the crux of the webinar, and that is going to how you can actually increase this velocity by leveraging the best of both worlds using LambdaTest and Ozcode together. And what the two tools are actually about, right? So LambdaTest, at one point, we provide you I'll just switch to the next slide. So yeah, so with LambdaTest, what you get is a cloud-based cross-browser testing infrastructure, which allows you to test your website on more than 2,000 plus browsers and operating systems, all hosted on cloud. So it's basically an execution platform where you can come and test your website or web app over the cloud with ready-to-fire machines. So you don't have to worry about maintaining your in-house infrastructure that sucks up your DevOps bandwidth, or losing losing your finance team or your budget side pockets. But you can focus on the things that matters most for your business, which is about writing the test cases and executing them over the cloud infrastructure without worrying about any maintenance cost or anything, any dependency that comes with in-house. We have basically manual testing on the product, which is the live testing that you can see over here. There is also Selenium Grid Online that is available on our cloud, which helps you to automate your testing scripts. And we also have responsive testing, so you can make sure that your website is looking seamless across different mobile viewports and mobile browsers. There's also screenshot testing, which allows you to capture bulk screenshots of a testing URL. You can capture screenshots in bulk, full page screenshots across a variety of browsers and operating systems at the same time in the same test session. Uh, with that, we have to help you ease your testing journey, we have 100 plus product integrations. These third-party integrations are with project management tool, codeless automation, CI/CD pipelines, and instant communications team collaboration tools. And we're always expanding the list of integrations. We have 24/7 in-app chat support. So in case you have any questions at any point of time, feel free to drop them in our chat window, and we are more than happy to answer them for you. With that, in case you have not already given a try to LambdaTest, make sure you give it a spin. Sign up after this webinar, or right away. You can do it side by side as and when you like. We have lifetime product access, so anything that you do run over here is going to stay here, and you can analyze that at a later point. So having said that, that's all I had to say, and I'll just switch to the next slide, and we'll talk about Ozcode. Idan, to you.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of infrastructure to set up. So I really see how much value people can get by just using LambdaTest to really reduce the effort of testing and just focus on what's really important. Um, I really like this duality between LambdaTest and Ozcode, because I think Ozcode would give you really the insights of what happened on your server, while LambdaTest give you all this army of devices to test against your server. And what we actually give you is a live debugger. And the live debugger is pretty cool because it can do two things for you at the same time, and everything without any code changes for your server. It would do autonomous exception capture. So every time an exception happened on the server, even if it was captured and not even sent to logs, the agent would find it and then record it. And we will see more about what time travel debugging and recording is all about. You can also actually add dynamic logs and tracepoint to actually debug your production system in real time and really see in code level observability what is going on. And everything with PII reduction, so you can really protect your client's privacy and sensitive information without going through all those legal loops. Um, we have a really nice growing developer community that really now move from traditional debugging into what we call live debugger. And like Harshit say, you can try Ozcode as well for free and just give it a spin now or later on. We are recording it, so you can just go ahead and play with your product. And when you want to hear more how we use them together, come back to the recording.
Right. Speaking of
And
recording, we do have a question in the chat. Whether Srijay is asking whether they will get the recording of this session. Yes, you will. This recording will be shared with you on your registered email address, and you can also find the full recording of this webinar over to our YouTube channel, and you can also find the previous webinars. Just type LambdaTest on YouTube and hit the subscribe button, and you'll be updated with every webinar that we go live with. I'm sorry, Adan. I seem to have interrupted. Please go on.
No, that is good. I think you actually interrupting a great time. I think let's go to the next slide to just cover um, what demos we're going to show. Because I
Sure.
think demos are really explaining what we're trying to show you than us talking about it. So actually, I was thinking what type of demos we can show you in relative short time to really highlight the barriers that we talked about before. And we will have three demos that will go from testing to production. So we will try to cover a large area of barriers. The first thing we will talk about something that is very hard to do without automation, and that is how do you make sure that your website look amazing in all type of different form factors. And we actually created a very ugly website for you to see how not to do things. So that would be very cool demo. And then we would actually cover issues that you see something that doesn't work on a test, but you really want to then see the entire picture end to end to resolve the issue. And then we will jump to the last thing and actually show you how to capture issues in production and solve them. And with that, take it away.
Thanks, Adan. Thanks for building the base for me, and I will take it from here. So, if you have just joined later on, I would just like to apologize here. I have the code and everything set up in the new system. So, while I'm demoing, I'll be looking a little sideways. So, excuse me if I look a little awkward. I'll be just looking it over here so I can do the demo and everything side by side. So, having said that, let me just go to the platform. So this is what we have built. This is the interface of LambdaTest. And over here, what you can do is we are at this point of time in the live testing module where, as I talked about, we provide various testing services, testing modules that you can come and take advantage of. So this is the live interactive testing. And as you can see, you have tons of browsers over here, which from where you can scroll, and the browser versions as well. You can go all the way to the legacy browsers for every browser that is available here with different operating systems. And this is the testing URL that will be taken in consideration for all the demos. So I will just go ahead and quickly spin it up on Chrome 89, Windows 10, and let's see what happens and how the website is looking. So as you can see over here, the operating system and the browser are mentioned over here along with the screen resolution. All these things are customizable. You can switch from here in case you want to switch to another operating system, but we can see as of now that on Chrome, this is a very basic example that we've taken. That's a very basic e-commerce website where you have, dummy items and some values that you can add to the cart. Uh, Now consider it this way. This is a very simple e-commerce website. Now let's try to see this website from Mozilla Firefox and or some other browser. For example, Mozilla is the next in queue. Let's see what happens. Is there any particular anomaly that we can find over here on cross browser end? And let me just spin that up real quick. All right, so we are in Mozilla now, and as you can see, we are not really sure of what's written here. The font size, it's messed up. uh, some things are looking far too big
Prices
for
are
us.
big.
Yeah, prices are big, which is good to know, but I think they're being too big right now. And this is actually a cross browser bug over here. This is what I wanted to highlight and address, as Idan also pointed out, that you want to make sure that your website is looking as it should, as per design on every browser, no matter where your customers are tuning in from, be it Chrome, be it Mozilla, or even mobile browsers for that example, right? So
Harshit, may I ask you a question?
yeah,
Would you be able like to see a comparison between those two browsers?
yeah. So you can actually like open them side by side, but yes, what you can do is just take a screenshot from here and say, for example, you have a screenshot. What we do have, so this is actually one functionality which allows you to capture screenshot. You can save, download, or mark it from here, right? For comparing the image between two browsers, we actually have another form of testing which we call smart testing over here. And what that allows is if you have, a website which is open in two browsers, you can actually open that website and see how, every pixel by pixel difference will be highlighted with a color over there. So if I just, if you can just notice the difference between Chrome and Mozilla here, you can see as I'm sliding, one side we're having Chrome, other side we're having Mozilla. This is one of the previous screenshots that I already captured. And, if you have like, I don't want to waste time here for everyone, but this is something really cool. You can go ahead, compare two images side by side and see how your website is spinning up in different browsers there.
That
Now,
is really cool.
as we saw, thanks. That was a very interesting question, by the way. Glad it popped up. So as we pointed out, as we were able to see that this was the anomaly, cross-browser anomaly that when we were looking into the Mozilla side, chances are that you'll have to test this on maybe hundreds of browser combinations, OS combinations, and that can take a considerable amount of bandwidth of your QA team, right? Because you don't have the time to test everything daily on everything, right? Let's face it. And that's exactly where automation comes into the picture. So you have your automation test suites configured so they do the job for you and make sure that everything is ready. And if there is something failing, you get alerted, and these basic sanity tests are kept in place. So now what we'll be doing is I'll actually be demoing the automation side of the platform, and we have a script configured in the system, on my Visual Studio, which allows you to basically go ahead and capture screenshot of this button, right? And if the screenshot is captured of this button, it will pass the test. If it is not captured, it will fail the test, right? So let's go to the demo that we have, and I'm running it on Chrome and Internet Explorer. So Mozilla, we've already seen the anomaly. Let's try a different browser altogether, IE, the notorious IE for everyone. And we're passing these set of capabilities over here. Let me just quickly run this test without any further delay, and we'll talk about you know the capabilities after that. So now the test is running on Visual Studio. So let me go to the platform, and if I go to the automation tab now, so I can see that the build is actually running over here. The loader is visible. The build is in execution mode. This is the same test that I've executed over here in my Visual Studio. And now let's just wait for the test to pass, and then we'll deep dive further as to what we were trying to achieve and what was the result here. Shouldn't take too long.
So that is running on the local machine, or is that running on LambdaTest Cloud at the moment?
So this is actually, I'm executing this command from my local machine, but since I have my, LambdaTest credentials passing through the code, the actual execution is taking place on the cloud platform. So you're passing the code from your local machine, but the execution is taking place on our cloud-based infrastructure.
Cool. So you can really leverage this entire matrix of operating systems and Chrome and browser versions. Are all
Exactly.
those running in parallel, or they're running one by one?
So this particular test is what we are running in parallel right now. You can see it on the top. We have 2 sessions running at the same time out of 5. So I have access of running 5 parallel sessions at the same time. But currently, 2 of those test sessions are being occupied in this particular script.
That is so cool.
While this is being loaded, let me just quickly, talk a little bit about the platform and all the amazing features that we have here. So from here, you can actually go ahead and see which capabilities we have defined on this Selenium side. If you just go to the capability generator. So this is the capability generator that we have built, and all you have to do is select the particular language that you want, and it will give you all the browser related, OS related, selections, which you can just simply point, and the code will automatically be reflected for that. You have specific, headless configurations. There is geolocation setting that you can set in case you want to test from different countries. You want to check how your e-commerce, it's especially relevant case when it comes to e-commerce. You are catering different, to different locations in a different manner, and you want to make sure that your prime locations or your prime offers are reflecting correctly there. So you can change those geolocation IPs and see how it's working from that side. On the advanced configuration side, you can go ahead and turn these capabilities to true in case you want these particular logs, right? So if you want to capture all the network activities, you can turn on network logs. If you want to test on local, your locally hosted projects or something, you can turn on the Lambda tunnel. And once you have everything selected, you can just simply go ahead and copy this code and paste it in your Visual Studio, right? So let me just, so if you just look over here, these are the capabilities that we have used for this particular test scenario. So Ozcode demo 1 in Selenium and network is set to true, visual is set to true. So we are able to capture those logs over here. And not sure why it's taking this much time. I made sure that the test runs effectively, but let me just try to just pause this, and I'll just, or rather let it run. I'll just open the previous test case and we'll see how it worked over there, right? So this is demo 2, and it was this one. Oh, this one. Yeah, this one. This has to be it. Yes. Cool. So this was the test case which is actually running. It might be something went wrong as I tried to install something in the new system in the VS Code side. But anyhow, so this is the website that we took in place, and on the Chrome we can observe that the website is actually passing. On Internet Explorer, it says that it is failing. And what is cool about the platform is that when you run this code from Visual Studio, you can actually come over here and check how the code is being executed. So we have the entire recording present over here, which will capture each and every interaction in the browser that take place. So when we ran the script, this is what happened. We went to the website and looked for that. The WebDriver actually looked for the button, and once that button was made available, the session was terminated later on. And what we did was, after we had that button, we stored it in the D drive folder as a screenshot of that element. And as you can see, the screenshot of element on Chrome is over here, but on IE is not. And that's also something which is evident from here, because on IE our test failed. And if we see the recording, maybe we'll get to the answer as to why it failed. Let's see if that button was available on the, okay, so we can, it's pretty evident that that button wasn't available on IE itself. So the reason being because that button is actually, it's an SVG file, which is not supported on every IE browser. And that was the reason why it failed over here, because it is not found. And if we go to the exception tab, this is actually interesting. You can see why, what was the response you received. And it's clearly visible over here that, we received a 404 because that element was not present over there at all. And that was the reason why it failed on IE. I'm not sure if, okay, is it passed or not? Let me just quickly go back and check if it's still in the running state. Okay, so it passed. I'm not sure why it took so long, but anyways, glad that it passed. And this is the test case actually. So here as well, it's the same code. So in IE, it's failing. And as I was talking about in exceptions, you can figure out that, 404 is there. And this is interesting because we passed on the visual capability. We are also able to see command by command screenshots as to what happened when. On the command logs, we'll be able to figure out these screenshots, as I said, on command by command basis, so you can figure out what went in the screenshot side on the command side. So IE is a notorious one. Let's just take Chrome in consideration while I'm displaying these capabilities. So as you can see, right from the timestamps as and when the code started, for every command that took place while executing the script, a screenshot gets generated. So you can pretty much figure out where and what went wrong if something goes wrong or out of the place. You also have network capabilities stored if you are passing the network capability to true. So you can actually see all the method types, be it get method, post method, and all the different ones. So you can see the status of every command as well, and how it interacted based upon your network conditions, how much time it took. You can see different, JavaScript related dependencies, how your image and media is behaving on different network, how the CSS is behaving, and there's lots of cool stuff that you can check out over there. We have logs which can help you debug in case something does go wrong. We have raw Selenium logs as well. Obviously, what's interesting is on your Visual Studio, if you look at over here, it says that the 2 tests have passed. However, something that you should notice is that one of these 2 tests are actually failing, and the reason behind that is because we have actually set up an exception in the code in the try and catch block. Let me just minimize this a little bit. So we have set the try and catch process over here in order to make sure that the value is set to failed. We are marking the test as failed in case if the element is not captured. And even though your Visual Studio says that it passed, this is where you actually get to see the reality of it. And you have console logs, you have terminal logs, so all the different logs that you need to deep dive in, you can go ahead and actually deep dive and see what went wrong where. Lastly, you have metadata to make sure that you have all the things you need regarding your session ID, test ID, operating system being used, all the screenshots and video dependencies. You can everything that you need to relay to your teammates, colleagues, everything you can find over here. You can download these from here, from these buttons. And that's pretty much it on the log side. There is also timeline, which can go ahead and show you everything that you have executed up until now, and with the timestamps and how much time it took, what were the errors. If you just click on it, those errors will be expanded, and you can select the view from build to test, and there's lots of cool things. You can set date filter, you can select the particular build that you want to check, status in case you just want to check your builds that have an error in them, you can do that, or builds that failed, you can do that too. So this is how it is. You can clear all the filter selections from here and do lots of amazing stuff on that side. On the analytics side, you can come and check, how many tests were executed, how much time it took, and so and so. So please feel free to come in and deep dive further. I can go on forever when it comes to explaining this platform. But point being conveyed, demo one was just about making sure that whether this element was actually captured. And as we saw that this is not something which rendered on IE, so capturing a screenshot of that is obviously not going to be possible. And let's go into demo two. So we actually ran the previous test, as Idan pointed out, on 2 different configurations. And if you look at the code over here, you can figure out that I was running them in parallel on Chrome 89 and Internet Explorer as well on Windows 7. Now for the next demo, it's more on this is more because I wanted to emphasize on the cross-browser dependency and cross-browser bugs that there are available. Now let's talk about the functional side. So you make sure that your website is looking as good as it should, and everything's looking fine, perfect. But then something lies, on the not on the UI side, but on the backend or server dependency or something like that. Some functional glitch is there, particular that ends up doing something harmful that you don't want to, and leave you in a red face moment in front of your customers, right? So that's what we have this demo for. It's very interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead to the same website and add items to the cart, and then we're going to remove the items from the cart, and then we'll see what happens, right? And since this is going to be a functional test, I won't be running this in parallel, so I'll just be taking the Chrome latest version on Windows 10. So this is also one of the cool things about the LambdaTest platform, is that you can actually use the keyword latest, and you can what it does is it automatically picks the latest available browser version on our platform. And in case you want latest -5, that you can, or latest -4, you can do that, and that is also getting picked up. Having said
That
that,
is cool.
yeah, so thank you, and let me just quickly run this as well.
Specifically with evergreen browsers, right?
Exactly.
Like
So like
every 5 days there is a new version, and you don't want to try to keep track on everything.
of
That is
course,
awesome.
exactly. And we make sure that we are up to the mark when it comes to making sure that those browsers are readily available on our platform, because it certainly takes a lot of bandwidth. You need somebody to manage every time something new comes in. Chrome definitely has 2 versions coming in, and every month there is Mozilla who's competing on the same manner, and so on. There are different browsers as well, so lots to catch up on that side. And that's the pain point we're actually trying to solve here, because we want to make sure that your release cycles and your test uh, dependency, it doesn't hold you back when it comes to infrastructure. So everything you need to test should be readily available on our platform. And having said that, I have executed the platform, the second test as well. It's running right now. And we can see that the test has passed over here. If we go to the platform now, I'll just go to the automation tab again. And yeah, so we have the demo 2 available over here. And let's see, it's also reflecting an error. Let's see what happened. So we tried adding items to the cart, as I said, and we did it on the latest Chrome version. And as we can see in the video, we are adding item to the basket. I'll just forward it a little bit. Yeah, so we are adding item to the basket and we are raising the count to 2. What happens is when you hit the update button after that, since it says buy 2, get 1 free, it automatically, the counter goes to 3. And then when you try to negate that, what we've done is just removed. I don't feel like buying this hoodie. It's not that good for me, right? So I thought of closing it down from my cart, and I just had a change of thought. And whoa, what just happened, right? So the moment
Exactly.
we deleted it, the website crashed. And this is not good, not from brand perspective. Your customers are definitely going to feel very shady about how you're running the business, and that's not the kind of impression you want to leave on in front of your customers, right? So this is actually a functional behavior, a functional failure. And no matter which browser we run it on, it's going to behave in the same manner, right? Because this is that's why we won't have anything on the exception side, because this has got nothing to do with from one browser to another, but it's something that has to do with the functionality testing of functional testing of your site. Now if we go to the command logs, because I had all the logs already available, we can actually figure out all the screenshots command by command, as I pointed out. And as a QA, what will you do now that you know that this is what happened? Your job now is to report it, right, on whichever project management tool or instant communication tool, or however you are integrating with the team. But you need to raise the alarm for the development side, right? So you need to make sure that you go to the particular screenshot where the website actually failed. And let me see if we have that screenshot. All right, there it is. So this is what happened. This is what led to the failure, this particular step. And we have a screenshot for it, which is great. Now what I can do is I can simply go ahead and mark a bug from here. And what this does is it's actually addressing to the pain point, of collaborating with your QA to your developers. And when you click on mark as bug, mark bug but icon, what it will do is it will lead you to your favorite project management tool. Now obviously it's not going to guess which is your favorite project management tool. You'll have to integrate that beforehand. So since I'm guessing everybody's here is a C# lover, so we have Azure DevOps in place for that already. And you can figure out the project that you have on Azure DevOps. We already have a dummy project created for this demo. So you can figure out, whether it is an issue, and you can just type website crashed. As I said, it's a new system. The keyboard is it's still new to me. So excuse the typos there. And you can figure out, whichever iteration you want and all the details. You can also send it to Slack in case you want. For now, I would just want to avoid that. Because I have a project management tool integrated, and that's all I need. I can create an issue now from here. Iteration field. All right. Let me just. Okay. So we have the right sprint over here. Now let's create the issue. And it says that the bug has been marked successfully. Now let's see what happens. Let me just go to the. So this is the uh, Azure DevOps project where we, integrated the project for this. So this is the bug that I recently marked, website crashed, as we just saw, and it is being reflected instantly on my Azure DevOps project. Like I don't need to get stuck on email chains. I don't need to, just keep on reminding them over there. I can come here, and what's really cool about this is I can find the screenshot to the URL. I can find the URL to this screenshot that I wanted to share, along with all the test details, including test ID, session ID, test URL, operating system being used, everything related to configuration setup, along with all the capabilities that were passed. So all these things are automatically, transported from LambdaTest to your project management tool instantly in just a single click. And over here now, then I can go ahead and just raise an alarm. I can tag Idan over here, and or I could just let them know. Idan, since you're already available on this workspace, maybe I'll just pass on the mic to you, and you can take it from there. Yeah,
Awesome.
I will stop sharing my screen now. Then.
I think that was a really awesome example of capturing the error and then actually see create it and report it to the dev team to fix. Now, the issue that we have here, and I will just go and show that again really, really quick. Um, if we just do that, we got this nasty error page. And that is really a problem because in order for the developer now to fix it, it's not enough to only see the recording of what happened in the front end, which is so valuable because that is the only way you can produce it. But you also need now to look at the logs or now figure out what happened in the backend. So what we did before the webinar, we actually installed the Ozcode agent that really allow us these live debugging capabilities to help us complete end-to-end issue resolving capabilities. Yes, that was a mouthful. So this is the Ozcode production debugger. And what you can see here, you can see a graph of all the errors that happen. And you can see, let's just refresh it. You can see here that this error just happened 53 minutes ago. And because we actually have integration with Ozcode and LambdaTest, you can even have which test ID that test actually happened. So you can really know and filter to see only the errors that happen in that specific test. So let's reduce that because we would like to see everything else as well. Sorry, and I'm not looking at the right one. This one. Awesome. So this is really where you really want to understand what happened on the server side. And as you can see here, we have these web requests that actually return 500. And you can see really where the exception actually happened and caused this error. But you can actually now scroll up and see everything from the beginning of this request until when the exception happened. And that's what we call time travel debugging. Because it's not just enough to capture when the system blew up. Sometimes you actually need to go several steps backwards, go back in time traveling, to really understand where the state got corrupted. And as we can see here, someone tried to set quantity as -1, which is not legal. And you can actually see in this very visual language here that this if statement was evaluated to false. So we skipped that part. And this if statement was, this argument was evaluated to true. And because this is a lazy evaluation, then this one was not even executed. And you can actually understand it from these visual highlights. And we can actually go and see the exactly where the problem was. And you can see here that there was quantity, current quantity was 3, new quantity was 0. And we didn't get into this if statement, but we get into this if statement, which is where we have the bug. And you can see that new quantity was reduced. So here the new value is -1. And that is the part of the time travel recording because we actually show you the values, how they change over time. And for every function, as you can see here, you can also see all the local variables that captured in the time of that exception. Now, what I really want to do, I really want to say that I think that is really the problem. So I will create link to this variable. And now it's copied into my clipboard. And I will go to the issue that we created. And I think here I can say look at this and this really long, nice URL. And we will just save this comment. And now when Harshit will go and open this URL, you will see the following thing. It would actually go and move him to this exact location in time. So it's no longer, oh, that happened in that specific function. No, that happened in that specific iteration, in that specific function at that specific time. And that is really a cool way to really close the gap between QA and dev. Because now the only thing that QA actually need to do is just reproduce the bug in their machine, and the agent will capture the exception. And if you, even better, if you run it in LambdaTest, you will also have the recording of what really happened to cause it, and you have those two pieces of the pie. And with that, let's move to the last demo, which is solving issues in production. Hmm. Actually, let's stay on number two a little bit longer. Um, it's really cool to really to understand what is going on, but sometimes we really want to have more insight of what really happens during every request. And for that, we have the ability of adding trace points. So we created a session here. And as you can see here, we can search for any symbol. I can search for basket, and I can see all the symbols that have the basket model, and you can see all the code get from the production system. Now, you don't need to set up any code integration. What you see here is a decompiled code. But let's go see and what breakpoints did we actually
So,
put
Idan,
here.
this is actually pretty impressive. And I just, sorry for interrupting. I was just curious as to
Sure.
where do you get this source code? How is it fetching the entire source code? Where is it getting that from?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for answering that. I was just glossing over it. Um, usually, in order to debug a live system, it requires a lot of effort. You need to set the right
Okay.
and that is really take a lot of effort.
I
What
think
the
we
agent
lost you
does,
in the in between. I'm not sure. It could be my network, but I think it would be great if you could just repeat the entire explanation. I think we lost you in between.
oh, sorry, it had to happen that the network will drop somewhere in the middle of the webinar. Thank you for letting me know. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, it's you're perfectly audible now. Please go on.
Awesome. So what I was trying to tell before, um, when you want to do remote debugging, you really need to make sure that you have the same version of the code locally and remotely. And also sometimes you need to publish PDB files. There is a lot of effort. We really try to eliminate everything. And what you see here is actually a decompiled code from the running server on a web browser. So you don't need to really worry about what version is running on your production. You don't need to deploy PDB files. You don't need even to change build settings. It will run with whatever code you have on your server. That is a great question. Thank you.
Awesome.
So now we can just hit recording. And if we go back to website here and just play with different amounts, and that weird? Like, I don't know what's going on, but actually go here and actually can see all those events that happened. And we can see here that a deal was applied, and you can see the current quantity and the new quantity. And also we can see here that we are about to remove empty items. And that is pretty cool because we can actually go dive into the items, see everything that happened here, what was the quantity, and you can see here that the quantity was 0. And we can, so you can actually debug everything in runtime. And with that, let's go to the third example of solving issues in production. And in order for that, I would actually have to log in into the fake user here that we have. Then just give me 1 minute. So here I really love this mug and I want to take leverage of that. And we will try to buy this amazing mug. So let's just put some fake card number. And yeah, of course, this is mine, 2021 and 123. And we're going to purchase it. Now, again, we introduced some bug and something very bad happened. Now, the problem is, how do you redebug this? How do you get notified about it in the first place? But then if you do, how do you know what are the issues here? And it's sometimes very hard to give developer access to the actual log or to the dump files that was generated, because it's there is a lot of sensitive information. And when we designed this live debugger, and let's go back to the errors page, and we can see here we have this HTTP 500 error. When we designed it, we actually put security and privacy as first as citizens when we designed this system. And as you can see here, if we will go up and really see what is going on here, you can see here that the payment detail, the card number was redacted automatically for you. So you can be safe that we are actually protecting the sensitive information of your users and allow your developers to really see what's went wrong without compromising on security. And that PII reduction is applying everywhere. You can see here that we also capture all the network requests that happened during uh, that specific scenario. And if we just see the message body from this post request, you can see again all the sensitive information being redacted.
So is there by any chance we can change these redaction settings in case we want to?
That
Or
is awesome question. Yes, because different companies have different regulations and different rules and different code conventions. Well, you can just go here to the PII reduction tab, and there is some built-in things that we give you out of the box, but you can change from regular expression on values to identifiers on classes, on JSON objects and request, and even completely blacklisting namespaces and classes for that. And that settings only can be applied by the admin users of your account. So you can rest assured that once you set it up, they're there for good. Also, as soon as you set those rules would actually get applied automatically on all, would distribute it to all agents and would apply it again for all the redacted information.
this is so cool. Awesome.
Thank you. And I think with that, we're really trying to show you how you can really catch a variety of issues, right? From really interesting cross browsers and how you can support some legacy interesting browser, keep up to date with the latest. We also show you how we can actually collaborate on a single work item and have a full recording of what happened to the front end and a full recording of what happened in the back end, and the ability to now live debug and capture issues in productions. And with that, I
Awesome.
think LambdaTest is really amazing cool tool. So Harshit, can people try it up?
Thank you so much, Idan, for again for building the base for me already. But I honestly, it's just mind blowing everything that you can do with Ozcode. It's just you have all the things you need when it comes to debugging, production debugging, and you know, to getting to the RCA. It's like everything is in place, and it's absolutely amazing. And I can see how it can actually scale the productivity without compromising the security side of it, as you explained. That was actually very impressive. I'm sure our viewers must be thrilled by that. And having said that, I'm sure our viewers must be thrilled by the fact of LambdaTest as well, which I demonstrated. So in case you're not already signed up on LambdaTest, make sure you do. It is absolutely free, and your first 100 automation minutes are actually going to be upon us with a lifetime access to the product, where your manual testing minutes are going to get renewed month by month. So make sure you go and sign up to the product in case you already haven't. And let us know your thoughts as to how you feel about the platform in the chat window. We already have some questions coming in. I want you to be rest assured we'll be answering these questions as and when we close this demo. So in the end, we'll have a Q&A round very soon now, and we'll be picking those up. But any chance you have anything around the two platform, make sure you drop them in the questions. Thank you.
And also, if you like what you see in Ozcode, uh, go give it a spin. For development purposes, we really want you to have this ability and test it and see the value for yourself. So just go ahead and sign up. You get 100 agents, so you can really scale from small into a large clusters and have your all your debugging needs met. And with that, I think let's just do a recap and go to the main issue or the main dish for the webinar, and that is the Q&A. So
Before we do
you
that,
want to
let's
start?
yeah, before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about the release velocity. As you said, let's just summarize everything that we've learned. Make sure, starting off, it's very important that you make sure your browser test coverage is on spot. You don't want to lose the game there, because in case if you're not testing on something on a particular browser on OS combination, and if a majority of you could be potentially losing deals which can, you know, cost you a fortune later on. So make sure that when it comes to browser test coverage, your game is spot on solid. You're leveraging automation uh, and doing all the stuff in order to make sure that everything is set up in place. And make sure you're using LambdaTest in order to do that, because we're really here to help you with that.
Exactly. And I really like the ability of Lambda test to record everything, because that is really, for me, one of the best practices of how you close the gap between devs and QA. And that is just record everything. Now, sometimes it's very hard to set up if you try to do it locally on your machines, but with tool like Lambda Test, that is actually happen on the fly. And if you also use Ozcode to the backend, you get all 360-degree recording, and then you have much less gap between your two QA and dev teams.
Always good to know that we're making a difference. Thanks, Idan. And make sure that you're leveraging cloud wherever possible, not just Lambdas. There are many dependencies that you can actually get rid of if you just opt in for cloud. And cloud is there to help you scale, and everybody's moving towards it. So make sure as many dependencies you can cut when it comes to your on-premise setup. You just get rid of those dependencies and move to cloud wherever possible.
Exactly, and really to move to cloud, you can even have store all your logs in a cloud, and that really go back to the point is that don't waste time reproducing issues. Really try to build your infrastructure and your software to actually record everything that happens. And if you can have the conditional recording, that is even better. But just the ability to record happens. So you can then analyze it under the fact. And we can see it in this webinar that Lambda tests give you a full recording of all the commands that happen. So you can actually understand where the issue was. And also in Ozcode with time travel debugging in code level.
I love it when you say like time travel. Who doesn't want to do that, right? That's so cool to
For
even know
sure.
that definitely hits the rank. So, and speaking of the next best practice, that is, make sure you're following the shift left testing. It's the buzzword. I'm sure pretty many of us are already aware of. Make sure that you're incorporating the testing not after the development is done. In fact, it should be incorporated as soon as possible. So when you are having even the code review sessions where you're just thinking about how you want to approach a particular feature and a scenario, make sure your QAs are involved, and think about automation right from the beginning. Make sure you don't delay that. See, benefits of automation, testing, they will actually, you will be able to leverage them better if you incorporate them right from the development phase, right? And it can help you detect bugs sooner, and the sooner you detect these bugs, the better you're able to, the sooner you're able to fix them, and the less it will cost you in the long run. So automation
Exactly.
testing right from the start, make sure you're doing that and following shift left.
Exactly. And really trying to bring all the production to the left. It's very important to when you actually capturing your exceptions and issues in production is to have good metrics. to really understand which bugs actually impacting your business and what bugs are just smoke alarms, right? And there is nothing there. And really try to estimate the effort, because you sometimes bugs would actually only be found in production, and when they do, you really want to prioritize your development team to really focus on the things that actually important. So adding metrics to your error capturing mechanism is really good for helping you prioritize.
Definitely, that's a very solid point. In fact, you should, when it comes to browser testing as well, you cannot just go into the woods and just roam around wherever you want to. You need to make sure that you're leveraging the automation test suite on the browsers and operating systems that are most used by the audience. You can use web analytics tool to figure out which browsers and operating systems are widely used, or which screen resolutions are widely used by your visitors, and start optimizing your journey from them, because the most widely used configuration is going to be your highest priority when it comes to UI. So definitely bug prioritization is absolutely important. Make sure, when as we talked earlier as well, that your stage environments and production environments have to be identical. Now I know that it's not going to be 100% identical scenario. It's not going to be feasible for everyone, because not everyone has the, if you have large automation suites and you have a lot to test on your bandwidth, it just adds a lot of investment of time and resources if you want to make sure everything is on the same scale on stage and production. But just make sure that you're sticking it as closely as you can in order to avoid bugs reappearing, or just coming out of the blue in your production environment. And similarly, you'll be also able to quickly reproduce the production environment into stage. Although time travel is really cool, you can see why it happened when, but just make sure that you're keeping the two environments as close to each other as possible.
Exactly. Do the best you can. Um, in speed up the way you can jump between staging and production. Um, Go both directions of how quickly can you deploy, but also if you find issues, how quickly can you reproduce it. And the last thing is really when you're actually trying to reproduce and capture issue in production, think in advance about sensitive information and regulations from day one, because adding them under the fact could actually be very work intensive to do. And if you can have tools that would automatically redact your sensitive information from the logs or from the exception captures, they are really valuable because they would really help you take issues that happen in production and bring them back to dev for fixing them. And of course, as Harshit said before, as soon as you find those, just add them to the automation layer, so they would never happen again. And with that,
All
Q&A.
right, Q&A, right? So feel free to drop any questions that you have. We already have some questions in here already. So starting with, Srijab is asking, does Ozcode got all language compatibility?
Yeah, that is a great question. And that is where we are aiming. Currently, what you see here is C Sharp features. We now have a private beta for supporting Java language. And by the end of the year, we are aiming to have also Python and Node.js.
Awesome. That's good to know. I'd just like to extend this part on the Lambda test as well. So on the Lambda test side, you'll be able to get the language compatibility for so we just received a praise. I'll come back to that as well. Thanks, Jan. And on the Lambda side, you can pretty much, just spin up all the languages that are compatible with Selenium. Anything Selenium supports, our grid will definitely be able to take that up. Make sure you go and try it for yourself in that case. And Jan, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thanks, Harshit and Idan, for a great presentation. I'll try to look at at your system and give it a spin. Cheers from Denmark. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Happy to know that we're making a difference here. And looking forward to your exciting review. Make sure you drop us on the chat or comment anywhere that you feel like. We'll be happy to work upon your suggestions and remarks. Looking forward to that. So next question is, can we upload Visual Studio automation script in LambdaTest dashboard and get it executed? So you cannot upload automation scripts into the LambdaTest dashboard because, as I said, like it's what we provide is an execution platform. So you have, and that's actually the beauty of it. So you have all the code you need in your system, in your machine with the right IDE setup. You can run it from cloud-based IDEs as well. In case you have Gitpod or something like that, that would also do. But if you have some IDE set up in your own system, that is where you run the code from. And as Idan also asked this question earlier in the webinar, once you run it from any IDE or your own setup, it will pass that value to LambdaTest grid, and we can take it over from there. So in order to do that, your normal Selenium script will, all you need to do in your normal Selenium script is just pass the username and access key, which you will find on the LambdaTest dashboard. I can just quickly go ahead, share my screen and do that. Then if you could just stop screen share, I can just, thank
Go
you.
ahead, take it.
Thanks a lot.
While you set things up, you can also deploy those tests to a CI/CD server, right?
Exactly. So from a continuous testing perspective as well, it's something I wanted to convey, but I couldn't. We'll talk about the integrations as well. So starting from the question, as I was pointing out that you'll have to define your username and access key, which you can find from the dashboard over here. So your username and access key is what helps your IDE code executed from IDE to authenticate access towards LambdaTest cloud server, and you can define it into your code over the WebDriver URL. So when you're defining the path to WebDriver, you can just declare these values over here with the grid URL and everything, and we have passed it over on the top as a string, as you can see over here. And having said that, these are the set of capabilities as we already talked about. You can find them from the capability generator. And on the platform side, you can actually integrate it with tons of third-party tools, as we talked about earlier. So that also incorporates CI/CD tools, as you're asking. So we have like a variety of CI/CD tools that you can simply go ahead and plug your CI/CD pipelines. And what you can actually achieve is continuous testing from there. So every time you try to push something new to your pipe through your pipeline, even if it's to a staging environment, if you have a CI/CD job running, what it's going to do, and it has our Selenium tests incorporated within that CI/CD pipeline, it's going to spin up some tests on LambdaTest instantly as you push the code, and you can see how that code is working based upon the test failures or test pass statuses. And I will now stop sharing. So that was that. And we have another question which says, under automation testing, do you provide frameworks with utilities for DB comparison, Excel read write, etc.? So if you're referring to behavior driven, I'm not sure if excuse me if I'm not getting this right, but you can actually do data driven testing when it comes to LambdaTest. Anything that you have if you have an Excel sheet ready to implement some data driven testing or behavior driven testing with Selenium, you can pretty much run everything on LambdaTest platform as well. So all the frameworks that are compatible with Selenium are definitely going to be compatible with LambdaTest as well. You just need to do some minor changes to the code that I have already demonstrated. You just have to figure out the username and access key, which is provided on the dashboard, and pass it into your Selenium test scripts. Once you do that, you just need to define capabilities and your code will run as good as new. I hope I answered that question correctly. In case I haven't, please don't hesitate. Do check out do drop a follow-up question here, or you can later reach out to our website support and we'll be happy to help you from there as well. You can also drop a question or the comment on the YouTube channel if you are watching this live on YouTube. Probably I can pick some things from there as well.
I will try to add a little bit my 2 cents around that. What I really like about the setup that LambdaTest did is really you just boot up this web driver for Selenium inside your unit tests. So I believe your questions sound to me more like integration test, that you run some commands on your system and then you validate that the database is correct. So those two things would just work amazingly. The only thing that I would try to suggest here is don't use parallel testing. because
Right.
when you're comparing the database, usually you have a setup and a tear down to set up your database state correctly. So running those tests in parallel would be very hard to then make work and to be robust. But beside that, there is a really good integration between other tools that you, any other third-party tools for doing those.
Thank you so much. That's a great value added feedback on that. And we have one more question here, which says, "What happens if the front end and back end are developed into two different languages? Can Ozcode detect if it's a back end issue?"
Yeah. Um, so yeah, you can actually. It doesn't really matter what front end language you're using. Um, if if the Ozcode agent is support the backend, he will just monitor all the exceptions that happen there automatically. So if there is an issue, or maybe if the user didn't know that there is issue, but exception happened during that test, you will be able to see the list of those exceptions with full-time recording uh, that you can go and dig in and see what's going on. Um, Later on, when Java is coming online, you will also be even able to debug when you have like a cluster that is written in different languages. Actually, have a debugging session that involve several languages. And because you can use our SaaS platform to access all those languages, you don't really need to, you know, have the right version of the code or have the right IDE tools. You can just go to the web and start debugging in that specific language. Let me know if that answered your question.
Srijap, please feel free to let us know if we are helping you out. In case we're not, we'll be happy to take it up on the follow-up questions. And anything else that you guys need to ask, please feel free to throw it our way. Uh, we still have around 5 minutes, but if in case you've got nothing, so we'll just close it up in that case. But we're waiting for another minute or two in case you have anything. Please feel free to throw up. So I don't. What time is it there?
Well, it's lunchtime for me. So it's like 12 o'clock, so noon in my time.
Awesome.
You can, yeah, I can even see that I really have this nice lighting from the window.
Yeah, it's just the background that's not allowing me to. So you have this Ozcode background setup, so I couldn't judge. But yeah, I saw that as you waved your hand, I could see that the ray of sunlight that were coming in. Right.
What time of your what
It's
time is for you?
so it's 11:47 in the night over here. So it's going to be I'm going to start I'm going to be starting the new day now in India. So in the next 10 minutes. So yeah, Srijab has actually followed up. He said that yes, compared to the on to his last question. Yes, actually, I'm working on Python. So when will it be available for Python? He says.
Yeah, I would really be happy to stay in contact with you, but you can expect that at the end of the year.
So I believe you can also reach out to the support and drop them an email in case you want to follow up. So they'll make sure that you get to be the first person to be aware of when Python is made available on the platform. So definitely. Anything else, guys? If you have anything else, or we could just give it a wrap. Idan, what do you think? Getting late for lunch? Is it?
I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you because it's really amazing that it's like almost like 12 in the night and you're so fresh.
I'm a night
So
owl.
kudos
Can't
for
help.
you.
Night owl, can't help it. But it's also the life of startup. There's no day and night, and really it's the COVID thing. Working from home.
Exactly. And with virtual backgrounds, we're all in the same time zone. So
Yeah, that's one way of saying it. Yes.
so yeah, I think let's give it like one more minute if people have more questions,
Yeah, sure. Let's then give it a
and
wrap.
with that, I think we can see if we wrap it up.
I agree on that. Yes.
I really want to thank everybody for staying with us I know it was a little bit longer session than I usually do. So thank you very much for your time. We really hope that you had value out of this session.
Yeah, I'd just like to extend that thanks from my end as well. It was lovely connecting with you all, and we just hope that you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy during these stressed out times. Make sure you're eating well, staying safe. Exercises wherever possible, every now and then. That's a must. Everybody's sitting home. I for sure I've gained weight a lot of it. So exercise is a must. And we're not getting any further questions, so let's give it a wrap. And in case you have any further questions around this webinar or Ozcode or LambdaTest in general, make sure you reach out to our chat support, and you can drop us an email at support@lambdatest.com as well. Similarly, you can reach out to Ozcode team as well, and they'll be happy to connect with you. You'll find the full recording of this webinar over the email, as I pointed out earlier, and also over our YouTube channel. You can also check out previous recordings of our earlier webinars. If you find value in this webinar, we have done tons of webinars previously as well, which has loads of information around test automation, CI/CD setup, and a lot of other amazing areas. So make sure, and Ozcode 2 has a huge catalog when it comes to webinar. Lots of amazing videos when it comes to especially production debugging. Fan of their webinar catalog, make sure you go ahead and follow that as well. Special thanks to you, Idan, for showcasing all the amazing stuff and that we can do with Ozcode. It's really great, and I'm just happy that we could take some time out of your schedule and we could hop on a quick call. Take care. Have a great day, everyone. From my side, until next time, happy testing.
Happy testing.